The unwanted arrival. The crystal spires of Zephyria Academy pierced the purple sky of Altarius Prime like frozen lightning. For 3,000 years, these halls had educated the finest minds from across the galaxy. Only the most advanced species were invited to attend. The Zerathi with their perfect memory, the Vorthak with their mathematical genius, the Kellen with their ability to see quantum probabilities. Every student who walked these corridors represented the pinnacle of their civilization's achievement. Today, something unprecedented was about to happen, something that would make the ancient walls tremble with consequences no one could foresee. High Chancellor Vexitar stood at his office window, his 4 eyes focused on the small transport ship approaching the Academy's landing platform. His crystalline skin reflected the afternoon light as he turned to address the gathered faculty members. Each represented a different species, each convinced of their own superiority over the primitive races scattered throughout the outer systems. "Remind me again why we agreed to this experiment," Chancellor Vexitar said, his voice carrying the authority of centuries. His people, the Altari, lived for over 2,000 years, and he had spent most of his life at this academy. Professor Thalanis, head of advanced sciences, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Her people, the Nebulan, communicated partially through color changes in their translucent skin. Right now, she was showing patterns of deep skepticism. The Galactic Educational Council insisted we demonstrate our commitment to inclusivity. Apparently, some Outer Rim species complained that we only accept what they call elite civilizations. Elite? Dr. Koroth's laugh rumbled through the room. The massive Brutok folded his 6 arms across his chest. "We accept species based on demonstrated cognitive superiority. It is not our fault that most races never develop beyond primitive tool use. The humans have achieved faster than light travel," offered Professor Yilara, the Kellen representative. Her large, multifaceted eyes could perceive 17 different dimensions of reality simultaneously. "That suggests some level of technological advancement." "Barely," snorted Dr. Koroth. "They stumbled onto warp drive through trial and error. No elegant mathematics, no theoretical framework, pure luck mixed with stubbornness." Chancellor Vexitar raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "Regardless of our opinions, the decision has been made. One human will attend Zephyria Academy for a full term. We will evaluate their performance and provide a comprehensive report to the Council. If they fail, we can formally recommend that humans remain excluded from advanced galactic education." The transport ship touched down with a soft hiss of hydraulics. Through the massive windows of the faculty lounge, they could see a single figure emerge from the ship. She was small by galactic standards, barely reaching the height of most species' children. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore what appeared to be a standard Earth military uniform, adapted for space travel. "That is the human?" Professor Thalanis asked, her skin flickering with colors of disbelief. "She looks like a juvenile." "Humans have shorter lifespans," Professor Yilara noted. "Their educational cycles are correspondingly compressed. She is actually 17 Earth years old, which represents near-adult maturity for their species." "Maya." Chen stepped onto the platform and looked up at the towering spires above her. She had dreamed of this moment for 3 years, ever since Earth's first diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council. When the opportunity to attend Zephyria Academy was announced, she had competed against 3 billion other humans for the single slot. The tests had been brutal, covering everything from theoretical physics to xenobiology to interspecies cultural dynamics. Now, she was here, the first human to walk these halls. The weight of representing her entire species pressed down on her shoulders, but she squared them anyway. Her father had been a Marine, and he had taught her that you never show fear to those who expect you to fail. The Academy's AI guide materialized in front of her, a shimmering hologram in the shape of an idealized Altari. "Welcome, student Maya Chen of Earth. I am designated as your orientation assistant. Please follow me to the registration center." As they walked through the corridors, Maya noticed how other students stopped their conversations to stare at her. Most were taller than her, some by several feet. Their appearances varied wildly, Some were humanoid, others bore no resemblance to any Earth creature she had ever seen. What they all shared was an expression of curiosity mixed with disdain. 2. Hazarathi students whispered to each other in their clicking language. Maya's universal translator caught fragments. Primitive biped. Probably cannot even access the basic learning matrices. A group of Vorthak clustered around their portable calculation devices, their tentacles moving in complex patterns, as they solved equations that would challenge Earth's greatest mathematicians. One of them noticed Maya watching and deliberately turned his back to her. The registration center was a vast circular chamber with floating data screens arranged in precise geometric patterns. Maya approached the central desk where a Kellen administrator waited. The being's compound eyes focused on her from multiple angles simultaneously. "Student Maya Chen," the administrator said without preamble, "your academic records from Earth have been reviewed and found adequate for our most basic courses. You will be enrolled in Introduction to Galactic History, Basic Quantum Physics, Elementary Xenobiology, and Comparative Literature. These represent the minimum curriculum for first-cycle students." Maya had expected this. Earth's education system was considered primitive by galactic standards. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had learned to excel within limitations, to find creative solutions when direct approaches failed. "I appreciate the opportunity," Maya said simply. "When do classes begin?" "Tomorrow at first light cycle. Your dormitory assignment is Sector 7, Level 3, Room 47. You will be sharing accommodations with—" The administrator paused, consulting his data screen. "No roommate assignment. It appears no one requested to share quarters with a human." Maya nodded, unsurprised. She had prepared for isolation, for being treated as a curiosity at best and an inferior at worst. What mattered was proving that humans belonged among the stars. Her dormitory room was smaller than she had expected, but comfortable enough. The walls could display any environment from the Academy's vast database, and she chose a view of Earth's Pacific Ocean at sunset. For a moment, homesickness hit her like a physical blow. She was further from home than any human had ever been, surrounded by beings who saw her as a primitive experiment. Then she remembered her father's words. "Fear is just excitement without breath, kiddo. When things get scary, just breathe and keep moving forward." Maya unpacked her few belongings and prepared for her first day of classes. She reviewed the course materials that had been uploaded to her personal data pad, noting the assumptions. The curriculum made about student capabilities. The physics course, labeled as basic, covered concepts that would be considered graduate-level work on Earth. The history course spanned millions of years and dozens of civilizations. But as she read, Maya began to notice something interesting. The teaching methods were incredibly rigid, focused on memorization and repetition of established facts. There was no room for questioning, for alternative approaches, for the kind of creative thinking that humans excelled at. The next morning, Maya made her way to her first class, Basic Quantum Physics, taught by Professor Thalanis. The classroom was a sphere with students seated at various levels around the curved walls. Maya found an empty section and settled in, her human furniture adapting to the alien architecture. Professor Thalanis materialized at the center of the sphere, her translucent skin glowing with patterns that indicated the beginning of a lesson. Around her, complex equations and diagrams appeared in three-dimensional holographic displays. "Today we will examine the fundamental principles of quantum entanglement as applied to faster-than-light communication," she announced. "The mathematics are precise and immutable. There is only one correct approach to this problem, established by the great Nebulan physicist Veltar some 800 years ago." Maya raised her hand. The simple gesture caused a ripple of whispers throughout the classroom. Several students turned to stare at her in amazement. Professor Thalanis paused, her skin flickering with surprised colors. "Yes, student Maya?" "I have a question about the base assumptions in Veltar's equation," Maya said. "What if we approach the problem from a different angle? Instead of assuming that entangled particles maintain perfect correlation across all distances, what if there's a decay function based on—" "Student Maya," Professor Thalanis interrupted, her skin now showing sharp patterns of irritation. Veltar's equations have been proven mathematically perfect for 8 centuries. There is no different angle to consider. Please allow me to continue the lesson. But Maya's question had planted a seed of doubt in several minds. A young Kellen student named Zixara was running calculations on her personal device, her multifaceted eyes reflecting growing confusion. The equations Maya had suggested actually produced more elegant results than the traditional approach. After class, Maya found herself surrounded by a small group of curious students. Most were from species she had never encountered before, representing some of the galaxy's less dominant civilizations. "How did you see that pattern in the equations?" asked Crix, a member of the Zilani species. His people were considered intellectually inferior by the major galactic powers, despite their natural ability to perceive mathematical relationships that others missed. "I have been wondering about that same question for cycles, but never dared to ask." "On Earth we call it thinking outside the box," Maya replied. "When you can't rely on having the best tools or the most knowledge, you learn to look at problems from unexpected directions." Word of Maya's questions began to spread through the academy. Some students dismissed it as primitive ignorance, but others began to wonder if there might be value in this strange human approach to learning. Maya's next class was comparative literature, taught by Dr. Siveth, an ancient Altari who had been at the academy for over 400 years. She assigned the students to analyze a classic work of Zarathi poetry that explored themes of mathematical beauty and logical perfection. Most students produced careful analyses that praised the poem's adherence to traditional forms and its celebration of rational thought. Maya's essay was different. She wrote about the emotional undertones she detected in the mathematical metaphors, the way the poet's longing for perfection revealed a deep sadness about the limitations of existence. Dr. Siveth was initially dismissive, but as she read Maya's analysis more carefully, she began to see layers in the poem that she had never noticed before. The human had found meaning where millennia of traditional scholarship had seen only technical excellence. By the end of her first week, Maya had unintentionally disrupted 3 different classes with her questions and alternative approaches. The faculty was growing concerned about her influence on other students, particularly those from less prestigious species, who were beginning to question established methods. Chancellor Vextar called an emergency faculty meeting to address what he termed the human problem. "She is undermining our entire educational framework," complained Dr. Koroth. "Students are questioning fundamental principles that have stood unchallenged for millennia." "Perhaps that is not entirely negative," suggested Professor Yilara thoughtfully. "Some of her insights have been illuminating." "She is primitive," Dr. Koroth insisted. "Her approaches are chaotic, undisciplined. She succeeds through luck, not understanding." But even as the faculty debated Maya's impact, something was happening in the deeper levels of the academy that would soon demand everyone's attention. The academy's quantum defense system, a marvel of Altari engineering that had protected the institution for centuries, was beginning to show signs of instability. The fluctuations were subtle, detectable only by the most sophisticated sensors. Most faculty members dismissed them as routine calibration issues. After all, the system had never failed, never even shown significant anomalies. Maya, however, noticed the fluctuations during her study sessions in the library. Her human pattern recognition, evolved for survival in an unpredictable environment, picked up the irregularities that others missed. She spent 3 nights analyzing the data, applying the same kind of unconventional thinking that had disrupted her classes. What she found made her blood run cold. The quantum defense system wasn't just showing minor fluctuations. It was building toward a catastrophic cascade failure, one that would leave the academy completely defenseless. Maya tried to report her findings to the faculty, but was dismissed as an alarmist student who didn't understand the sophisticated systems she was attempting to analyze. After all, what could a primitive human possibly know about technology that was ancient before her species learned to make fire? They were about to find out exactly what humans were capable of when everything they thought they knew was proven wrong. The Awakening. 3 weeks into Maya's stay at Zephyria Academy, The morning alarm carried an undertone that made several species' survival instincts twitch with unease. Maya felt it in her bones. That subtle wrongness that every human learned to recognize, inherited from ancestors who survived by reading danger in the wind. She was in advanced theoretical physics, a class she had been moved to after solving Professor Thalanis's impossible equation set in 3 different ways. The Nebulan professor had stopped trying to suppress Maya's questions and instead began incorporating them into her lessons, much to the horror of the more traditional faculty members. Today we will examine the theoretical framework behind defensive quantum matrices, Professor Thalanis announced, her skin patterns showing excitement. The Academy's own defense system represents the pinnacle of this technology. Maya's hand shot up immediately. Around the classroom, students groaned softly. They had learned that Maya's questions usually led to hour-long discussions that challenged everything they thought they knew. "Professor, I've been monitoring the quantum fluctuations in the Academy's defense grid," Maya said. "The harmonic resonance patterns suggest a cascade failure building in the primary matrix. If my calculations are correct, we have maybe 6 hours before total system collapse." The classroom fell silent. Professor Thalanis's skin cycled through several colors that Maya had learned to recognize as confusion, disbelief, and growing concern. "Student Maya, that system has operated flawlessly for over 2,000 years. It is monitored by the finest Altari engineers. Surely you cannot believe that you, in 3 weeks, have detected problems that escaped their notice." "I don't think they're looking for the right kind of problem," Maya replied. "The system is too perfect, too stable. On Earth, we learned that systems without any chaos, without any flexibility, eventually become brittle. They fail catastrophically when they finally do break." Crix, the Zilani student who had become Maya's closest friend at the Academy, was running calculations on his personal device. His mathematical intuition, dismissed by the major species as primitive pattern recognition, was showing him the same results Maya had found. "She is correct," Crick said quietly. "The stability readings are too consistent. Natural quantum systems show minor variations. This system shows none, which means it is being artificially suppressed. The energy for that suppression has to go somewhere." Professor Thalanis dismissed the class early and immediately contacted the Academy's chief engineer, Dr. Velquin. The ancient Altari's response was predictably dismissive. "A human student thinks she understands our quantum engineering. Professor Thalanis, I am surprised at you. Our defense system is a marvel of technological achievement. It has never failed, never even shown significant anomalies." Dr. Velquin, "Perhaps we should at least examine her data," Professor Thalanis suggested. "Some of her insights have proven unexpectedly valuable." "I will not waste time on the fantasies of a primitive species," Dr. Velquin replied. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have real work to attend to." Maya spent the rest of the day trying to get anyone in authority to listen to her warnings. She was politely dismissed by every faculty member she approached. Finally, in desperation, she decided to take her concerns directly to Chancellor Vexitar. The Chancellor's office was located at the top of the Academy's tallest spire, a testament to Altari architectural achievement. Maya had never been this high in the structure before, and despite her concerns about the defense system, she paused to admire the view of the surrounding landscape. Chancellor Vexitar kept her waiting for over an hour before agreeing to see her. When she was finally admitted to his office, his 4 eyes regarded her with barely concealed irritation. "Student Maya, I understand you have been disrupting classes with wild theories about our defense systems. This behavior is unbecoming of a Zephyria Academy student, even one admitted under special circumstances." "Chancellor, I know how this must sound," Maya began. "But the quantum matrix is going to fail. The harmonic suppression system is building up resonance energy that will eventually exceed the containment thresholds. When that happens, the entire defensive grid will collapse in microseconds. And you base this conclusion on what? 3 weeks of studying systems that took our greatest minds centuries to develop?" Maya took a deep breath. "I base it on pattern. Recognition evolved over millions of years of survival. Humans had to learn to spot danger quickly, or we died. We developed an intuition for systems under stress, for the subtle signs that precede catastrophic failure. Chancellor Vextar's crystalline features hardened. Student Maya, you will return to your dormitory and focus on your assigned coursework. You will not discuss these baseless theories with other students. Consider this a formal warning. As Maya left the Chancellor's office, she felt the familiar weight of being dismissed, of having her insights ignored because of who she was rather than what she had discovered. It was a feeling every human innovator had experienced when challenging established thinking. But Maya had inherited more than pattern recognition from her ancestors. She had also inherited stubbornness. That evening, she gathered with a small group of students from the Academy's less prestigious species, Crix the Zilani, Sil-Ara from the peaceful Delani, and Roth-Ak from the insectoid Chirian civilization. These were students who understood what it felt like to be dismissed, to have their insights ignored because they came from primitive cultures. If the faculty will not listen, Maya said, then we need to be ready to act when the system fails. You truly believe it will fail? Asked Sil-Ara. Her people had achieved spaceflight through cooperation and careful observation rather than aggressive technological advancement, making them sensitive to systemic problems that others missed. I'm certain of it, Maya replied. The question is whether we can do anything about it when it happens. They spent the night analyzing the Academy's defensive capabilities, studying the quantum matrix specifications that Maya had accessed through her student research privileges. What they found was sobering. The Academy's entire defense system was built around the quantum grid. Without it, the institution would be completely vulnerable to any form of attack. Why would anyone attack the Academy? Roth-Ak asked. His species communicated through chemical signals as well as sounds, and Maya could detect traces of anxiety in his pheromone output. The Academy represents the pinnacle of galactic achievement, Crix replied. It houses technological marvels, the greatest minds in the galaxy, and databases containing the accumulated knowledge of dozens of civilizations. It would be an incredibly valuable target for anyone willing to take the risk. Maya nodded grimly. And if word got out that the defenses were down, even temporarily, she didn't need to finish the thought. They all understood the implications. At 0347 hours 3 days later, Maya was awakened by alarms that she had never heard before. They were not the gentle chimes that announced meal times or class schedules. These were harsh, urgent signals that spoke of immediate danger. She threw on her clothes and ran to her window. In the distance, she could see bright flashes of energy weapons fire. Ships were attacking the Academy, and the quantum defense grid that should have stopped them was nowhere to be seen. Maya's communicator chimed with an emergency message from Crix. You were right. Defense system failed 30 minutes ago. Pirates broke through outer perimeter. Faculty in panic. Maya quickly gathered the emergency supplies she had prepared and made her way through corridors filled with panicking students and faculty. The Academy's AI systems were broadcasting evacuation instructions, but the emergency protocols assumed that the quantum defenses would hold long enough for reinforcements to arrive. She found Crix and the others huddled in an unused classroom on the lower levels. Through the windows, they could see pirate ships landing on the Academy's platforms. The attackers moved with military precision, suggesting this was not a random raid but a carefully planned operation. They must have been monitoring the quantum fluctuations, Maya said, waiting for the right moment to strike. The faculty are completely unprepared, Sil-Ara reported. Their contingency plans all assumed the defense grid would provide time for evacuation or reinforcement. Without it, they have no idea what to do. Maya felt the familiar sensation of her mind shifting into what her father had called combat mode. It was a state of hyper-aware calm that humans entered when faced with immediate survival challenges. All the noise and confusion around her faded into background static as she focused on the essential problem: how to protect several thousand students and faculty members from a force of professional pirates. We need to slow them down, she said. Give the evacuation time to work. How? Crix asked. We are students, not warriors. The security forces were overwhelmed in the first assault. Maya smiled, and for the first time since arriving at the Academy, she felt truly confident. We use the one advantage we have. We think differently than they do. She pulled up a schematic of the academy on her datapad. The pirates were following standard assault protocols, moving systematically through the structure to secure key points and capture valuable assets. Their approach was logical, efficient, and completely predictable. They're thinking like conquerors, Maya explained. Taking territory, securing positions, establishing control. But this isn't a military installation, it's a school. We don't need to defeat them in battle, we just need to make them leave. Maya outlined her plan. It was insane by Galactic standards, relying on misdirection, psychological warfare, and tactics that no civilized species had used in millennia. It required them to think like humans, creative, unpredictable, and just a little bit crazy. The Academy's environmental systems were controlled by a central AI that responded to faculty override codes. Maya had discovered that her student research, access combined with emergency protocols, gave her limited ability to modify certain systems. Within an hour, the pirates found themselves dealing with problems they had never encountered before. Gravity fluctuated randomly in different sections of the Academy, making coordinated movement impossible. Environmental systems began producing sounds, smells, and atmospheric effects that triggered deep psychological responses in various species. Holographic projectors created false corridors and phantom enemies that appeared and disappeared without warning. Maya and her team moved through maintenance tunnels, using the Academy's own infrastructure against the invaders. They sabotaged communications equipment, created false intelligence reports, and generally made the pirates' lives miserable without ever engaging them directly. The turning point came when Maya realized that the pirates' command ship was still connected to the Academy's docking systems. Using her access to the environmental controls, she began flooding their ship with a mixture of gases that were harmless to most species but created severe disorientation and nausea. Faced with an enemy they couldn't understand, fighting a battle they couldn't win, the pirates retreated. Their carefully planned assault had turned into a nightmare of confusion and setbacks. Within 6 hours of their arrival, they were fleeing the system, convinced that the Academy was protected by some form of advanced defensive technology they had never encountered. As emergency reinforcements finally arrived, the Academy's faculty found themselves confronting an uncomfortable truth. Their most sophisticated defenses had failed completely, but they had been saved by the improvised tactics of a human student and her group of primitive allies. Chancellor Vextar stood in the ruins of his office looking out at the damage caused by the pirate attack. Professor Thalanis approached him hesitantly, her skin patterns showing complex emotions. "Chancellor, the preliminary reports are illuminating," she said. Student Maya's warnings about the quantum defense system were completely accurate. If we had listened to her, we might have prevented this entire situation. "And her response to the attack?" the Chancellor asked. "Unprecedented. She used tactics that our military advisors describe as impossibly creative. She turned our own systems into weapons, fought a battle without fighting, and defeated professional raiders using nothing but intelligence and creativity." "Chancellor." Vextar was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "Where is student Maya now?" "In the medical center helping with the wounded. She has been there since the attack ended, using her knowledge of human emergency medicine to assist our medical staff." The Chancellor made his way to the medical center, where he found Maya working alongside Dr. Yileth, the Academy's chief medical officer. Maya was helping treat a Brutok student who had been injured during the evacuation, using human techniques to stabilize the patient until proper species-specific treatment could be administered. "Student Maya," the Chancellor said quietly. Maya looked up, exhaustion clear in her eyes. "Chancellor, I should probably apologize for violating Academy protocols during the attack. I know I overstepped my authority." "No," Chancellor Vextar said firmly. "You saved lives. You saved this institution. Perhaps it is time for us to reconsider our assumptions about what constitutes primitive thinking." Word of the attack and Maya's response spread throughout the galaxy faster than hyperspace communication. The image of a single human student protecting the galaxy's most prestigious academy, using nothing but creativity and determination, captured imaginations across dozens of species. On Earth, Maya's actions were celebrated as proof that humanity belonged among the stars. But the real impact was felt among the galaxy's other primitive species, who began to see new possibilities for their own advancement. Applications to Zephyria Academy from previously dismissed species increased by 3,000% within a single term. The Academy was forced to expand its programs to accommodate new ways of thinking and learning that challenged millennia of established practice. Maya completed her studies at the Academy with the highest honors in the institution's history, but more importantly, she had opened doors that could never be closed again. She had proven that intelligence came in many forms, that creativity was as valuable as knowledge, and that sometimes the best solutions came from the most unexpected sources. As she prepared to return to Earth, Chancellor Vextar met with her one final time in his rebuilt office. "Student Maya, or should I say graduate Maya, you have changed this institution forever. I hope you understand the magnitude of what you have accomplished." Maya smiled, looking out at the Academy's spires where students from dozens of previously primitive species now walked alongside the traditional elite. "I just did what humans do, Chancellor. We adapt, we survive, and we never give up. The galaxy is about to learn that there's more than one way to reach for the stars." Chancellor Vextar watched her leave, finally understanding what the old warnings had meant. Humans were not dangerous because they were aggressive or warlike. They were dangerous because they refused to accept limitations, because they found ways to succeed when success seemed impossible. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, Chancellor Vextar thought as he watched Maya's transport disappear into hyperspace, that was exactly what it needed.